We can go on the record. Thank you, Mr. Court Reporter. Hello, today is Monday, May 19th, 2025. My name is Jennifer Grace. I'm a public utility law judge with the Maryland Public Service Commission. It's a little after 7:02 p.m. We're here for a virtual evening public comment hearing for Maryland Public Service Commission case number 9733, which is Chaverton Solar Ramier LLC's application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct a 3-megawatt solar photovoltaic generating facility in Montgomery County, Maryland. The purpose of this hearing is twofold. The first is to give information to the public. This is the third public hearing that we've had. And there was a filing date last week with some pre-filed written testimony from the parties. So they may have an update as to what their position is at this time. And some of the parties are required by statute to give that position at this public hearing. The second part of the hearing is to take information from the public, and we do have some folks signed up to speak today. I'm going to start with presentations by the parties, and we'll start with the applicant.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Andy Flavin, counsel for the applicant, Chaverton Solar Ramier LLC. And if it would be okay, I believe we have Katie Griffin with Chaverton as well, and I believe she has some slides that she can present.
Sounds good.
And that, Your Honor, it's
Griffin, you should have hosting rights now. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I am sharing on my end. For the record, it is Catherine Griffin, KATHERENGRIFFIN. Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's hearing. I am Katie Griffin. I'm the project manager for Project Ramier. Considering this is the third hearing, I will try to keep it brief. I believe most folks on the call have already heard the basics of the project, but if you haven't, it's located at 17600 Whites Ferry Road in Montgomery County. It's a 118-acre parcel. Approximately 11 of those acres constitute the limit of disturbance, 10 of those being comprised of solar panels. The project, based on its size, is required to go through the process for a certificate of public convenience and necessity. The utility for this project is PEPCO. There is already an interconnection agreement in place between the applicant and PEPCO for this project, and the intention is to proceed with agrivoltaics. And to give a little bit of background as to how we cite projects and how we specifically cited this project, there are four major components that we look at from a high-level perspective. First and foremost is the proximity to three-phase power lines with open capacity. So we look for sites that are adjacent to existing infrastructure, such as this one, and without major material upgrades to the infrastructure. For this project, all interconnection studies are complete, and an interconnection agreement is signed between the applicant and PEPCO. In addition to that, we look for sites that have no negative environmental impact. Throughout this process for the CPCN, as well as the mandatory referral process in Montgomery County, both state and local agencies have verified that there is negligible environmental impact based on this project. In addition to that, we're also looking for sites with gentle slopes to ensure that only minimal grading is required. For this project specifically, there's less than 10% slopes across the site. And lastly, we're looking for adequate screening for the project. Those with natural screening are prioritized, but in addition to that, for this project, we're adding screening both to the north and the east sides, paired with the gentle slope of the entire parcel, making the visual impact of the project negligible. So in the siting, we are on Class 2 soils, and in order to combat that, we have made a commitment to agrivoltaics, and based on that commitment to agrivoltaics and discussions with the county during the mandatory referral process, this is really the biggest update from the last public information hearing, is the planning board has reviewed this project through the mandatory referral process and voted in 3-2 in support of the project's with conditions that have been provided. And as a reminder to everyone, this project is a community solar project, so there are certain economic impacts to the local community. If you're a Pepco customer, you can subscribe to this project if it is approved. With that, customers can subscribe and receive a discount between 10 and 25% off their electric bill, depending on their income. Over the course of this project, it's estimated that we'll have 13 million in savings for customers, as well as annual savings of 213 and 534 for non-LMI and LMI subscribers respectively. This helps offset utility rates that have increased in Pepco's territory 6% year on end since 2010. And then in addition to consumer savings, there's also county and state revenue generated by taxes. This summarizes everything we have. And again, the biggest update since the last presentation was the 3-2 vote during the mandatory referral process, as well as an approved forest conservation plan.
Thank you. Next, we'll turn to the commission staff.
Good evening. My name is Harrison Scher, appearing on behalf of commission staff. My role as staff counsel in these hearings is to represent the analysts and technical staff of the commission in their review of a CPCN application. Staff is a participant by statute in all commission proceedings, and staff's primary task is to give expert testimony on the effect, if any, of the proposed safety and reliability effects on the electric distribution grid. We have filed our direct testimony on May 15th with a position to approve the CPCN for this case.
Thank you. PPRP.
Good evening, Your Honor and members of the public. My name is Supida Pukau. For the record, it is spelled SUPIDA PIWKHOW. And I am a power plant siting assessor in the Power Plant Research Program within the Department of Natural Resources. I am the project manager for the state's review of the Ramier Community Solar Generating Station that is being previewed tonight. This is what is called a community solar project, and if permitted, will contribute to the state law requiring that by 2030, 50% of the in-state generation come from renewable energy, and that 14.5% come from solar generation. My agency, PPRP, coordinates an independent review of the CPCN application for the reviewing state agencies, which include Departments of Natural Resources, Environment, Agriculture, Transportation, Planning, and Commerce, as well as the Maryland Energy Administration. Once the state's review is complete, the secretaries of DNR and the Maryland Department of Environment make a recommendation to the Public Service Commission as to whether the CPCN should be granted or denied. For this case, the secretaries of DNR and MDE are recommending approval of the CPCN with the incorporation of the recommended licensing conditions that PPRP has submitted for the PSC's review. PPRP's review of this case looked at a number of issues that are factored into the secretarial recommendation. Among these issues are land use, stormwater management, surface water and wetlands, vegetation resources and forest management, wildlife, climate change, climate and greenhouse gas emissions, environmental justice, visual quality and glare, public services and safety, noise, and electromagnetic fields. PPRP also evaluates economic and fiscal issues, transportation, cultural, and aesthetic resources. PPRP filed the recommendation of the secretaries of DNR and MDE in the record, along with its direct testimony and supporting documents for this case on May 15, 2025, under MLOC number 318870. And these are publicly available and can be reviewed on the PSC website under PSC case number 9733. The matter is now set for an evidence hearing on June 3rd, 2025. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission.
Good evening, Your Honor. Matthew Mills on behalf of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. As has already been mentioned, the applicant went through the mandatory referral process, which is done for public projects and public and private utilities pursuant to state law. The planning board held a hearing, and the vote was 3-2 to recommend to the Public Service Commission approval with conditions. And that the staff report, the letter from the planning board with the suggested conditions, as well as the forest conservation approval, which accompanied the mandatory referral, were all filed in the case on May the 15th. So the planning board at this point has concluded its proceedings, and that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Montgomery County?
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Garrett Fitzgerald, Garrett-Gerald. I'm here representing Montgomery County. I work in the Department of Environmental Protection, and I'm joined on the line here I see by Mike Shuffle, who's the director of our Office of Agricultural Services. We are primarily here just to observe this conversation. I'll note that this project is located in Montgomery County. The county intervened and is a party to this proceeding. We recently filed written comments on behalf of both the county council and the county executive, Mark Elrich, which can be found on the commission's webpage for this case. As folks know, for CPCN applications, the commission must give due consideration to the recommendation of the governing body of the county and to the consistency of the application with the comprehensive plan and zoning of the county where the project will be located. The comments provided by the county describe efforts of the county that resulted in a zoning text amendment that allows solar collection systems in the agricultural reserve zone of the county, but with certain protections for farmland. The county found that as currently proposed, the project is not consistent with the Montgomery County zoning ordinance, which restricts development of solar projects of certain sizes and characteristics in our agricultural reserve on Class 1 and 2 soils. We appreciate the opportunity to provide these comments and look forward to hearing the comments from other stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Council for the Montgomery Countryside Alliance, the Montgomery County Farm Bureau, and the Montgomery Agricultural Producers.
Hi, good evening, Your Honor. I'm Caroline Taylor, here for Bishop Sheehan, who was otherwise conflicted this evening. Interveners have filed their testimony on the May the 15th, now in the record. If you will give us leave, we do have a short PowerPoint that our team member, Christina Bostic, would like to present. It is something that we would like entered into the record to provide greater context.
Okay, Ms. Bostic, you should have host privileges and be able to share your screen now.
Okay, excellent. Let me set that up. Okay.
So, yeah.
Can everyone see my screen? Okay, excellent. Well, good evening, all. I'm Christina Bostic, for the record, Kristina Bostic. I represent Montgomery Countryside Alliance and our partners at Sugarloaf Conservation Association, the Maryland Farm Bureau, Montgomery County Farm Bureau, and Montgomery Agricultural Producers. I just want to take us quickly through, as Garrett was just talking about, some history on ZTA 2001 that allowed solar collection in the ag reserve. MCA was an integral part of that, and I'd just like to discuss some history that brought that to be. ZTA 2001, as was said previously, is what allowed solar to be in the ag reserve. Before that, it was completely prohibited. This was part of the very important zero emissions goal. We are stacking benefits here. There was a way to use some of the land in the ag reserve to site solar while also protecting the farmland, forest, natural resources, and water resources that are there. And that's what we think we elegantly did with 2001. planning it strategically and also having it be a very transparent process. This all grew out of the, excuse me, County Climate Working Group. You can read through this, but the gist here is that the climate change policies of the county should not be undermining the other policies of the county, particularly in our agricultural reserve, our vegetated areas, our soils, particularly I'm going to be hitting on a lot tonight. In the county's shift to net zero, preservation and protection of the environment should be an essential component. And that's why we feel like we're stacking benefits when we allow some regulated solar within the ag reserve as 2001 did. Who was involved in this? There were 62 local and state civic groups that really ran the gamut. Politically, age-wise, we had sunrise movements of students. We partnered with Clean Water Action of Maryland and all of these other groups to bring about this policy that both allowed solar and farmland to be protected. The working group process was transparent. There were stakeholders from the solar industry. There were farmers and ag reserve civic organizations like us. Doug Lucklighter, who was here this evening representing the Farm Bureau, was part of that work group. The entire time we were working through this, one thing that we thought was the linear thinking that put us on the path to the climate crisis really needs a correction with systems thinking. And as we were talking about stacking those benefits to preserve what's going well and add to it to move forward in a strategic way and problem solving in a climate of respect. And I think the working group did that. What did the ZTA actually do? Again, there was no solar allowed in the ag reserve before 2001 was passed. And it set up a conditional use process, which is very important. Each site where solar is being considered is slightly different slopes, different topography of the land, forest impacts, habitat impacts. The conditional use process has been used to make sure that the right array is going in the right spot. And the big thing that came out of it was protection for soils. That's the big thing here, and it's something that is notably not on the list of factors being considered currently by this project. So it allowed solar on prime class 3 and subprime classes 4 and above, and I'll get into some mapping for that. It also set a cap of 1,800 acres. So the mapping that I'm about to go through said once this ZTA was passed, there were 445 properties in the ag reserve that met the qualifications to have between a 5 and 15 acre array per site. So that is a total of 4,462 acres of ag reserve land that could host solar. So that's many times that 1,800 acre provision. Here is that mapping done back then at the time. For folks that are having trouble seeing this on the screen, I hope it's coming through, but these red areas are pretty much like alluvial river bank land, not where farming is necessarily happening, but those are very rich soils. Those are class 1. Class 2 is really where this whole thing turns on here. Class 2 are our most fertile soils in the agricultural reserve. Again, the only area set aside for farming. And they are prime. Those are those orange ones here. These peach ones here are class 3 soils. And then the sage green color here are our class 4 and above soils. It goes much further up than 3. So solar from 2001 was allowed on our peach areas here and our green areas here, but not the orange and not the red. It is really important to note that the USDA considers 1 through 3 prime. And so in giving up class 3 prime soils, that was a compromise made by ag reserve stakeholders for solar generation. What grows on all of these soils? This is just a very quick list. You can see that a lot of long-term farms are growing well on class 3, but a lot of class 2 soils are where most of our farms are. So this was back in 2021 when the ZTA was enacted. What has really changed since then that would upend the solutions that we came up with, the problem solving that we did? What has happened since then is Maryland has lost even more acreage, not just to development, also to salinization. And that's part of a larger trend across the country of 20 million acres of farmland being lost in the same time period, according to the Ag Census. Why is that important? We need all of it we can get. You'll see here, this is a interactive map from ProPublica, and it's worth going on. This is part of their larger interactive maps on climate change and the changes that are coming. These purple areas are where we currently get a lot of our out-of-season produce, fruits and vegetables. And these purple areas are going to be less and less able to continue to produce those yields of food, whereas the climate is changing and those same conditions are going to be more prevalent in these green areas, particularly here where we are. And the thing about that is that the yields don't just happen. It's not going to be the case that tomatoes are just going to start sprouting up through cracks in the concrete. We need to have those farms and those farmers in place to realize these gains and build these gains to make up for the lack of food coming from these areas that will be challenged to produce. And that is sooner than we dare hope happening. Just want to reiterate the purpose of the Ag Reserve is farming, both in the ZTA and currently in this conversation about these projects. Unfortunately, there has been some, attacks on the profession and saying that farming isn't occurring in the Ag Reserve when in fact 550 plus farms are occurring there, growing everything that you could imagine. We really feel like problem solving means everyone and that there's a place for everyone in solving how we use these resources. What's really important to know about the Ag Reserve and Montgomery County is it's unique in that 60% of farming in the Ag Reserve is on leased land. That's mostly because of the extremely high price of land in the metro area. And so it's true of both table crop and commodity farms, a lot of leasing going on. Land access is the #1 challenge to starting a new farm. In 2011, Montgomery Countryside Alliance started the Land Link Montgomery program to try and alleviate some of this, and we connect landowners with farmers, new and expanding, looking for long-term leases so that they can start their farm. This is our quest to get new generation farmers going so that we can increase the number of farms on the landscape. And what is happening now is solar leases will bring in 20 times the rent to landowners annually. I wrote this a while ago. 2,000 acres is low compared to what it is now, but the amount that farmers have paid has not very much gone up. 120 per acre. It could get as high as a few hundred per acre, and these are per year. And it's really important to know that this is not a future thing. This is currently happening. Farmers are already losing leases to solar, to planned solar, to anticipated solar. That's happening. There's just no way for them to compete. Pictured here at left, Tanya Dokospandola of Passion to Seed Farm, one of our successful land linkers who grows in Durwood. She grows crops from her native Zimbabwe. She's one of the few farmers growing Kiwano melon and pumpkin leaves. She has so much demand that she's looking for more acreage to buy. And she, like the other farmers I'm going to share with you, just can't get over this. So these are all letters and postcards that arrived probably over the course of like 3 months from a LandLink landowner. So this is someone that has chosen to get that smaller amount of money and lease to a new generation farmer. These offers that they're getting are ranging from $1,200 to $5,000 an acre. And that was a while ago. It has gone up since. They're seeking around 20 acres. So that's a lot of money. And then bonuses, now we're seeing, people are still sending us their letters that are coming in. We're seeing bonuses on top of that, a flat fee of $10,000, sometimes higher. And it's just not something that farmers can also offer. There is no way that a farmer is going to give an extra $10,000 to, rent some land. Just going to go through a few other land link matches. Dodo Farms, a Nigerian couple that have done incredible things on a small amount of land, could not find their land to expand to and have moved to Howard County, unfortunately, but we're thrilled that they bought and are continuing to farm. Giovanni's farm is in Poolesville. They moved from Howard County to be closer to the really high demand for local food here in Montgomery County. They grow on Class 3 soils. And so they are growing well there. AfriThrive is a nonprofit serving African immigrants. They do a free mobile pantry of culturally appropriate food that they're growing on 2 acres in Poolesville. They are looking for more land to expand to meet demand. So far, since 2011, Land Link Montgomery has matched 500 acres. We have 30 current land seekers. These folks you see here are just some of those that are already matched, but there is so much more demand. And there's only 9 current landowners. Matches are hard to make. The most common ask is 1 to 5 acres. And AfriThrive is a good example of the folks that are coming and looking through this program. It is predominantly people of color. It is mostly immigrants. It is a majority women. And that is who is looking to farm here. Those are folks that come from under-resourced backgrounds often. And that makes the ability to compete with these high solar leases even more impossible. So AfriThrive is on 2 acres. They are looking for more acreage. And they have recently gotten a proclamation last year from the council for their work that they're doing. They are growing on a combination of Class 2 and Class 3 prime soils. If, as this project is trying to do, we are not protecting those prime Class 2 soils, there is nothing to prevent this landowner from not having AfriThrive anymore and instead doing solar. And that would be financially advantageous to them. The thing about ZTA 2001 is it keeps that playing field level, somewhat level, for farmers and does not upend the economics, but still allows some solar. It's threading the needle, and we think it's an elegant solution that is going to keep farmers on the landscape and maybe even allow them to eventually buy. What about agrovoltaics? It's something that has come up a lot in these conversations. Farmers, Doug Lecklider and other farmers would tell you that they really need to see results. They're not risk takers necessarily. They need to see it happen because this is their business. And they need to see pilots before changing their practices. There are a lot of agrivoltaic pilot programs. They are mostly in much more arid areas. Some pilots in our region are ongoing. We would love to see the results from that. The ag reserve could be a place for these to occur, but they would have to be controlled. They would have to be done with a institution of higher learning, UMD similar. And additionally, pollinator habitat is really not agrivoltaics. When we're talking about agrivoltaics, it's going to have to be a farmer making a business out of it. And currently, the checklist for approved pollinator habitat includes the use of Roundup in the state for Maryland pollinator. And that's not a viable path forward for obvious reasons. All solar facilities are not created equal. We have a conditional use process in Montgomery County's master plan for that reason. Those differences in scale and impact are really important project to project. And it's important to note that the solar facilities are pitched as temporary, but we just don't have the data for that. These solar arrays have not been on the land long enough to know when you pull them up, can you plant another crop? Is the soil the same? We don't know. But what we do know is that it's projected about 40 years is the lifespan. And so when we're talking about a project that is 99% on our most pristine class 2 soils, it's taking it out of farming for a generation in the only part of the county that is set aside for agriculture. What has the impact of the ZTA been? 2 community solar projects in the PEPCO service area. And again, this was written some months ago, and I know that there are more in the pipeline now, particularly one in Barnesville that is meeting all of the qualifications of the ZTA. 50 farms have taken advantage of the 200 plus accessory solar generation provision. That isn't something that's talked about very often. Montgomery County Planning Department, in their report on how the ZTA, what the impacts have been, identified that the hurdles to getting more solar are utility approval and also grid interconnection. And bolding for our purposes here, there at the bottom, zoning and land use regulation have little, if any, ability to remedy these issues. Opening more land is not the answer when PJM and grid operators across the country are pausing approvals and have this huge backlog. This is the PJM map here. As you can see, this between these two here is right when ZTA 2001 went into place, and it is at the same time as a large increase in requests, and this was around the time that they were just pausing the queue and no one was getting in. This is not something that that our zoning can fix. This is a much larger and regional problem. So I want to close and just say we are in favor of solar. Obviously, we are, as 2001 showed, we're interested in compromises that stack those benefits and have green generation as we move towards zero carbon energy. But there have to be ways to collaborate effectively and stack those benefits and keep the purpose of the ag reserve as agriculture and the primacy of ag reserve as farming. Thank you so much.
All right. There was another party, the Office of People's Counsel. They're no longer a party in the proceeding. They are now an interested person. So that is a presentation from each of the parties in the matter. So now we're moving to the part of the evening public comment hearing where we hear from the public. And I have, I think, 2 members of the public signed up. We'll start with Nancy El Hebri. Are you on the line? Joyce Briner.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Joyce Briner, JoyceBreiner, a climate change professional as certified by the state of Maryland and the Association of Climate Change Officers, and co-founder and executive director of Pools of Green, a local all-volunteer nonprofit organization. I strongly support the Chaberton Ramier project and the implementation of agrivoltaic solar energy on agricultural land in general. The urgency of the climate crisis necessitates bold and innovative approaches, and projects like Chaberton Ramier are essential to meet our renewable energy goals while preserving the integrity of our agricultural land. Chaberton Ramier project and climate crisis. As net energy importers, Maryland and Montgomery County must boost local renewable energy production to reduce climate dependency and greenhouse gas emissions. Ramier addresses climate change by producing solar energy while supporting agriculture at the same time. Community solar projects like Ramier are essential for climate justice, providing access to renewable energy for those unable to install solar panels at home. These projects allow more people to benefit from clean energy and reduce carbon footprints. These innovative practices of agrivoltaic and ecovoltaic practices are gaining popularity globally with installations in states like Maine, Virginia, Georgia, Colorado, Arizona, Washington State, and across the Midwest. I made it a point to attend the Virginia Solar Summit held in Richmond, Virginia just 3 weeks ago. And both the Agrivoltaic World Conference and the U.S. Solar Farm Summit in 2024, witnessing firsthand the positive impacts of agrivoltaic and ecovoltaic practices on farm families and communities alike. Maryland must embrace these dynamic dual use, reimagining to stay competitive and avoid missing out on its benefits, such as ecological benefits, to promote biodiversity, improve soil health, and conserve water resources, add revenue streams for farmers that support fiscal stability and support sustainability and resilience, and enhancing crops as solar panels create microclimates that reduce water evaporation and shield crops, potentially boosting productivity and extreme weather. Recently released research yielded very positive results relating to vineyards and agricultural industry. Montgomery County is working to promote. Just two of the results of the research include a 60% increase in Chardonnay grape yield, while at the same time boasted a 40% reduction in irrigation requirements. Needless to say, the wine industry is starting to take note, and I've seen articles in wine-based magazines. Current zoning regulations prevent agricultural innovation that would benefit the whole Mid-Atlantic region. By restricting the development of community solar projects and dual-use practices, these regulations inhibit potential advancements in renewable energy and agricultural productivity. The ability to innovate is crucial for adapting to future climate challenges and ensuring the resilience of our agricultural systems. Did you know there's a food pantry in Colorado that only grows its leafy greens under the panels? See this picture? Why? Higher yields, longer growing season, and farm workers prefer it because they're shaded by the panels. The American Farmland Trust recognizes the importance of the ability of farmers to innovate and develop the following, and therefore they developed the following smart solar principles. 1, prioritizing solar siting on buildings and land not well suited for farming. Emphasize solar energy development on rooftops, carports, irrigation districts, brown fields, and other land not well suited for agriculture to help minimize the impacts of solar energy on our nation's best in agricultural land and farm businesses. Of course, that makes sense, right? Principle 2, safeguard the ability for land to be used for agriculture. If solar energy is developed on farmland or ranch land, the policies and practices should protect soil health, especially during construction and decommissioning, and to ensure opportunities for farming in the future. Principle 3, grow agrivoltaics for agricultural production and solar energy. Agriculture and solar energy can coexist if appropriate planning is undertaken. This is not me necessarily. This is what the American Farmland Trust is saying. Agrivoltaic projects sustain agricultural production underneath solar panels and or between rows of solar panels through the life of the project. And 4, promote equity and farm viability. Farmers and underserved communities should benefit from solar energy development. There must be inclusive stakeholder engagement to ensure projects strengthen farm viability and reflect farmer interests, including underserved producers that face barriers to accessing land and other resources. The whole point of what I just read there was that American Farmland Trust is on board with this idea. The Ramier project provides an excellent opportunity to demonstrate the viability or not of agrivoltaic and ecovoltaic practices in the ag reserve. but the ag community must step up to the plate and share the potential risks and rewards with the Chaberton on this project. The ag community has called for demonstration projects and research. Here's an opportunity on so many levels. As stated by Chaberton representatives at a public hearing, they have brought in agrivoltaic specialist Miles Braxton of Oakavate Sustainable Energy. This is a significant development that should not be underestimated, as Mr. Braxton has expertise and is a board member of the Colorado Agrivoltaic Learning Center, and a preeminent agrivoltaic site. In conclusion, the approval of the Chaberton Ramier project is essential for advancing Maryland's renewable energy goals, supporting agricultural sustainability, and promoting climate justice. Ecovoltaic practices offer a pathway to integrate solar energy with agricultural activities, providing multifaceted benefits for farmers, the environment, and the community, broadly speaking. I urge the PSC to approve the Chaberton Ramier project and to consider the broader implications of supporting solar energy on agricultural land. By doing so, we can make meaningful progress toward a sustainable and equitable energy future for all. Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right, also signed up was Mike Sheffel from Montgomery County. I don't know if you were signed up just to get the link or if you want it. I know you were referenced by Mr. Fitzgerald, or if you wanted to speak.
Sure, Your Honor. I can say a couple words tonight. Thank you. For the record, Mike Sheffel, Mikesheffel, and as Garrett Fitzgerald alluded to, I'm the director of the Montgomery County Office of Agriculture. I just want to touch on a couple things. As Garrett said, the county executive, the county council weighed in as interveners. They've shared their thoughts with the PSC and the group here. The project as proposed does not meet the county's zoning text or zoning ordinance. In a couple meetings, Chaberton, who I have met with willingly and discussed openly their ideas for these projects, hinted at that our Office of Agriculture's meeting was a tacit approval of any kind of agrivoltaics plan. I just wanted to say we absolutely met with them. We talked through the logistics of it, but our meeting with it isn't an endorsement, good or bad. It's they asked to meet and we met. As Christina Bostic with Montgomery Countryside Alliance has said, agrivoltaics in the Mid-Atlantic are still a work in progress. And I wanted to make that very clear with Chaberton, with Oakavate, Miles Braxton, that farmers need to be shown that it can work in this environment. And if it does, great. It's just to be determined at this point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, that's the list of folks who have signed up to speak from the public at this hearing. Unless there is anything else from the parties. I thank everyone for taking the time tonight. It's so important to the Maryland Public Service Commission to hear from the public and to hear from folks who have an interest in where projects are being proposed. Your comments will be considered as the case is being considered. The next procedural date is May 27th. That's when there will be a status update from the parties regarding if they'll be going forward under a settlement or if they'll be going forward as a full litigation. And then if it's a settlement, the hearing will be on June 3rd in Baltimore at the Maryland Public Service Commission headquarters in Baltimore. And if not, there'll be a change in the procedural schedule going forward. So that's what's happening next in this matter. May 27th status update and June 3rd evidentiary hearing in Baltimore if there's a settlement. Thank you everyone again for your time. I really appreciate it. And Mr. Court Reporter, we can go off the record.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.